Winston,
Hi there, James.
hey, how are you?
I'm very well. Good to see you and hear you.
Good to see you too. It's been a while, eh?
Yes, I think COVID made everything, different. It works differently now.
Yeah, everything seems to work differently. I actually ended up going to an actual conference last week in person, so that was quite a change, a
Yeah.
move in the direction. Um, well, um, well, look, I want to welcome you to In Conversation. So, In Conversation, a weekly chat or interview that I have with one of our authors, and we wanted to invite you on today to talk about the media studies. In addition to your research, various other things. I've got a little bit of an echo, but hopefully that'll be okay. So we do have a few people joining us in the audience. So welcome everybody. Welcome to In Conversation. I'm very pleased to have my guest today, Dr. Winston Mano, representing the University of Westminster, and we're going to get into a few topics momentarily. If anyone in the audience has questions for Winston, just drop them in the comment section, and we'll try and get around to them during the next sort of hour. So, Winston, just why don't you, first of all, just tell us where you're calling in from?
I am based in London. I'm at the university at the moment. I was working, so I thought I would end the work by participating in this interview. But thank you very much. It's an honor to be afforded this opportunity on your program.
I know it's wonderful to have you. You're a little bit quiet. I don't know if you turn up your mic.
I can be louder.
See if that helps.
Yeah, I will try to be louder. I think it's away from me. I can bring it closer. Does this help?
That sounds okay.
Okay,
good. I hope everyone can hear us okay anyway. Well, yeah, so you're back, so you're working on campus at the University of Westminster. So it sounds like things are returning to normal at the university.
Yes. I think we are now past another stage, but outside people are reporting that the infection rates are going up. So we are cautiously optimistic that this will continue. But definitely we have students on campus. We are still using masks when you are walking in the corridors. So it's normal, but you remove the mask, of course, when you are drinking or eating in the canteen.
Well, no, it's as I say, it was similar to the conference the other day, and the same thing happening. Everyone was masked up, everyone was vaccinated, but it was back to some semblance of normality. So it's still be in an academic environment where people could speak to each other directly. It just creates for a much more collegiate,
with elbows and
yeah,
fists. So I think it's an unprecedented moment in living memory, where we are having to do this. It's a bit strange to go into a class where everyone is wearing a mask. Of course, you as the teacher, because you have to talk, you can choose to take it off and then speak to them without any inhibition or any barrier. But if you feel that it's risky, you can still do it online and see them when you can, yeah, from a distance.
And I mean, I'm going to say, talking about teaching, do you want to just give us a little bit of an overview of the subject you teach and what your research background is? I mean, we can get into the specifics over the course of the next hour, but if you could, just tell us what it is and what are the main subject areas you focus on through your work there at the University of Westminster.
Thank you. I started teaching here 21 years ago.
Wow. Congratulations.
At the moment, thank you. At the moment, I'm teaching media and development, which is a course that I lead at the university. I wrote the course in 2012. I'm very pleased that the course has done very well. We started by recruiting 8, 10 students. Now I have classes of 40 students upwards. And these are very enthusiastic, very engaged kind of students from around the world. So it's an honor to debate and discuss and dwell on development issues with people, especially from the global south. But my teaching generally is in the communications area. I did not, when I went to university many moons ago, I had my undergraduate in 1991 at the, I got my BA degree in 1991 at the University of Zimbabwe. And it was not in media, but in English and economic history. Then I worked in the media industry in Zimbabwe briefly, including as an editor for Africa Film and TV, which was a very good journal. I really liked it. And we were at the forefront of observing trends and writing about them in this periodical. I remember going to Tanzania when multi-choice television was launching there, and we were like, witnessing this, expansion of an African satellite TV company. And I also then, from 1998, I went into teaching, starting at the University of Zimbabwe. I spent 2 years there. And it was really productive and very eventful time. I worked with, people who are now, at the forefront of the subject in Africa, across the world. And some of them are media leaders, working in the media industry itself. So I feel very privileged to have witnessed the establishment of the subject at the University of Zimbabwe, and to witness how some of the products from those early programs went on to expand and to do PhDs, to teach at other universities, to establish other programs, and to pioneer, work on African media studies. So my journey has been not only in media. I started in economic history and literature, which was English literature, or literature in English. And economic history gave me some insights and grounding into work that I do now. I wanted to really understand. I've always wanted to understand the context, where Africa is located, where Africa is coming from. And I feel that studying history is something that was really important for me. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Do you think do you think it's important that for you personally, in terms of your own journey, but in terms of perhaps advice you would give to people to actually work in the industry prior to going into more of an academic teaching background? Did that have quite an impact on the way that you think about the subject, having that practical knowledge?
Definitely. I think being a practitioner who then comes to the classroom is really significant. I understood news-making processes. I understood how, the media people work, and also understood some of the constraints that they have, particularly in the African environment, where the kind of imperatives and the dynamics are different. And yes, I was working for a trade kind of journal, but it was important nonetheless to see how the relationships between the producers, or the people who own the publication, and us as the people in the editorial team interacted. And I felt that this was really fascinating.
That sounds fascinating. And I mean, obviously, you've been based in the UK for 21 years, right? But you're originally Zimbabwean, is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Zimbabwe. I was born in the colonial era,
okay,
in 1968. And it was really, it was really a difficult time for my family. I remember as a young child, having to be stopped at roadblocks, driving with my father in the country. It was also during the war, and my family had to move from one place to another within Zimbabwe. And it was, I mean, growing up during the colonial period was very difficult. The education, the spaces we occupied, at that stage, we didn't know that this is colonialism as young people. But when increasingly we became aware of why there was a war, why people were fighting, and when my father told me about the curfews and sometimes he would give clothes to guerrillas, as they say, the liberation war fighters. Yeah, he would have some clothes for them, and they would have networks to give them food and clothes. It was very difficult, and if you are caught doing that, you could be killed. And then sometimes we have also people from Ian Smith's government come to knock at your door. And as a young primary school student, I remember these days when walking to school, I would meet a group of soldiers. They would ask me, so where are the liberation war fighters? Have you seen them? And in some cases, I would have seen them. And for me to say, I saw them this side, it's dangerous. If you say that side, then they go the opposite side. So it was, it was very difficult. If you try to point them in the right direction, they would go the opposite direction. If you point them in the opposite direction, they would. So we always wondered, but we found a way to negotiate and to still continue to go to school, except that some schools will be closed when the war situation heated up, and then we'll be moved as a family to another location. But It was not that easy.
I mean, it sounds like a difficult, but like, I suppose a very impactful childhood. Would you say that like all those experiences have had a major impact on who you are and who you are as a scholar?
Yes, I think these formative years, for example, when I became more aware in secondary school, at university, it sort of made me curious, want to understand the colonial world as well as the post-colonial world. I really wanted to know where the society was coming from and what were the kind of forces at play. And so I was reading, consuming anything, films, newspapers, trying to understand, to make sense of my environment. So yes, it was a very impactful stage of my life, growing up in the colonial era. I spent my first 12 years during colonial Zimbabwe. And 1980 came, and we were so happy and joyous. We thought, oh, and Bob Marley, you remember Bob Marley came to play. He chartered his plane and he came to Harare, and even penned a song, about liberating Zimbabwe. And we were all very optimistic. This is it. This is it. We have arrived.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you a fan of Bob Marley then?
Very much so, very much so, very much so. I like his songs. Each time I'm feeling, a bit out of it, I always play Bob Marley. It sort of gets me back into situations. And especially, I mean, his tracks are so meaningful. And he's saying also about these notions of liberation, about the ordinary persons, and also about speaking truth to power. So he was a man ahead of his time, and I feel very honored to have lived in Zimbabwe, although I did not go to that particular concert. Yeah, I wish I did, but I was only 12 then.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I never had the opportunity to see the great Bob Marley live either, but I think he's one of the characters who's universal, especially as an anti-establishment protest figure, but also all about he's spreading love, also like you say, knowledge to power.
He was so influential. I mean, we all wanted to be Rasta. We all were dancing like him, and which was a sad moment when he passed on. A few months after, we felt a big loss. But he helped inspire a whole generation. by saying, look, Zimbabwe is now liberated, and he wrote a song in honor of the country, which I felt was something that was noble. But the aspirations that he had, of course, in post-colonial Zimbabwe have been fully tested, some of them betrayed.
Yeah.
But this is the story of Africa, that quite a lot of the expectations that people had, if you look at some of the recordings at that time in 1980, the aspirations, whether it was land, whether it was jobs, whether it was different kind of life, some of them have been fulfilled, but most of them have been, not met by the circumstances, by especially the political establishments that we have in Africa. And this is a major challenge. So I feel as a child of both the, born in the colonial era and experiencing the post-colonial phase, it's always a very difficult thing. I am from Zimbabwe. I was born in Zimbabwe, but now I live in London. Somebody is asking, where are you from?
They must have joined us late. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, I feel that the story of Zimbabwe is a story of Africa, the story of many countries in the global south coming from colonialism. That when you have people like me born in the colonial era and coming into the post-colonial era with a lot of hope, expectations, it's not always that some of these expectations have been met. We still have a lot of poverty. We still have a lot of people going without. Should it be like that? I think personally that things can be different. Yeah, we need to try our best to make sure that we don't betray the interests of the majority of Africans. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to speak to you about, well, we're going to get into a lot of different topics today, including about this idea of deep media studies, that nature, and Afroecology. Before we get on to that, I just wanted to ask from your experience, so are you afforded the opportunity to go back to Zimbabwe, COVID, allowing, but over the past 20 years, I assume you've been back to Zimbabwe a number of times, and you're obviously living in London. So there's a few things there. I was wondering, have things changed, and do you see positive change, within terms of the country as a whole, but also perhaps through education? Have you seen much change in the time since you've been living between in Europe?
Yes. I think a lot has changed. I'm quite inspired by some of the changes, but more can be done. Particularly, there is also a problem with continued poverty and worsening employment situation. And there is a feeling that some basics, for example, when there was the land reform, there was so much hope that this would result in different kind of economics where community development can be inspired.
Right.
We have met so many problems. When I go to Zimbabwe, I hear so many stories about people who were not able to get land. But however, in general, there have been some changes that are good, like education, for example. Zimbabwe has scored very highly in terms of education. But then education must also be linked to our economics. For example, we should have, places like jobs for those people who are educated. At the moment, if we have graduates who are, engaged in menial jobs, maybe they are selling sweets or doing some things that are not so good, because the education system has been very good in producing graduates. Yeah. But what we don't have is connections between the different parts of of the social change that is occurring. Then in terms of the land reform, one would think that this would inspire different kinds of activities that would engage those who are educated, yeah, engineers, agriculturalists, and other people would get in. Journalists would start newspapers and run things. But at the moment, because of lack of funding and because of the sanctions that are there against Zimbabwe, we have political problems. Political problems attract sanctions, and sanctions make you economically weak. And so we have had politics that are also very divided, which does not help. So, but however, and Mugabe prevailed over the country for many years, almost 4 decades. Now we are in a new post-Mugabe era, and we are seeing again some changes towards another kind of politics. But in some cases, people are feeling that we still have not gone over the Mugabe era kind of politics, where we are still looking at some big problems affecting our country. And I feel sorry, there are so many, like I said at the beginning, people invest so much hope in the changes taking place. And if these hopes are betrayed, it's really painful. You have a whole generation which will never see the change that they desire. So I always impress on my colleagues, on friends who are in politics and in government, to really look deeply, to search deeply for solutions that can change the life of ordinary people. We in the diaspora, we are very keen to be involved. They've been overtures to us in diaspora to say, look, come and do this. We don't have a vote, but we are hoping that if the government is able to listen to us, to give us some kind of recognition, we can even, we send money, yes, but that's not the main thing. But we can actually do more things, yeah. When we go back, for example, we can connect with other institutions, we can learn from there, but we can also bring the skills and knowledge that we have from here.
Well, I wanted to ask you, I suppose, the big questions here. I suppose more generally, what role should the former colonial powers play in this process of bringing Africa to the center stage? And then, in addition to that, which is, I know is a huge question to unpack, but maybe just get your quick thoughts on it. And then, what's the role of academia in that process as well? And and African media studies, perhaps. So
I think it's a very important question you ask here. What role should the former colonial powers play? I think Britain, for example, has been committed to a fair land reform program in Zimbabwe, which is integral to development. They've also been supportive of the political change process, helping the political actors to come together, so that, because without political solutions, you don't have any momentum on the social change aspect. So, in a way, because Britain still has, local industries that are, connected to it, they still have a community of, people who are of British origin living in Zimbabwe. They have a lot of stake, and they have an embassy that has been trying to play a key role in the change processes. But during Mugabe, this role has been seen as interference, as one-sided. He felt that the British wanted to implement regime change. So what I plead with the British is to be fair-minded, to go with an open mind, so that they can listen to locals if they are invited to take part in the social change processes. They should listen to the locals. They have the lived experience. So whether it's civil society, whether it's political politicians approaching them, whether it's the government, they should make sure that the solutions that they are putting forward are in the interest of the generality of the population. in most cases in Africa, the problem with former colonial powers, like with France, for example, in the Francophone area, is that sometimes they act as if it's still, uh, the African countries are still part of their, control. But things have changed. There are so many alternatives. Some African countries are now able to deal with China, with Russia, and provide, different opportunities. Like the Americans, they meet African governments every year, and within the global South and within Africa itself, we see a lot of meetings where people discuss solutions to their problems. The African Union, within BRICS, for example, South Africa has been bringing fellow, global South countries into the frame. So we have a situation where, if handled properly, the former colonial powers can leverage change and but they should listen. They should approach the situations with the respect towards the locals, so that lasting solutions can be found. You asked what is the role of the media here. The media, I think, should be platforms that help people find each other voices to be listened to. They should facilitate. They are not neutral. They are not just conduits. They should be critical friends. Yeah, where if things are going wrong, the media should report and shout out loud. They should not be captured by powers that be, by vested interests. We should have, different voices within society. And the problem is that the media themselves, sometimes they don't have, scope. I know my colleagues who are in journalism, they work under very difficult conditions. Sometimes they are arrested, sometimes they are silenced, they have families to feed. Nobody wants to go to these jails that are, lice infested and things like that. And some have actually, been killed in the performance of their jobs. So it's a very difficult environment. But nonetheless, what the media should do is to keep fostering that space where they can communicate without fear or favor. Politicians are very much wanting to silence the media, and also even big business sometimes want to silence media or to capture them, so that they just communicate what they want to hear. This is a problem, and we also have now even big technology companies like Facebook with their free basics and all that, Google, MultiChoice, and others venturing into Africa and offering all kinds of services. In some cases, some of these services have resulted in a new kind of capture, a digital capture, I would argue, which can also be very restraining for local voices. We want a situation where the media, where Africans are able to communicate without fear or favor. And it's us as Africans, it's our role to defend this space and to create it and establish it.
Oh, that's really interesting. And thanks for clarifying some of those points. We got a couple of questions coming in from the audience, but I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, obviously you're a media studies, education studies scholar, in academia for a long time, and in UK, and you've attended conferences across the world and worked with things. So what's the role, number one, what's the role of academia in developing this, and I suppose just helping to bring in marginalized voices more generally?
Yeah.
And so just in addition to that, do you think academics should change their approach and prepare young people to be entrepreneurs rather than scholars, which is a question to the audience. So,
thank you. These are very pertinent questions. Yeah, I think academics, just like journalists, they should not be neutral. There's nothing like neutral in life. Yeah, it's either you are on the side of what is the truth, or you are not. I don't think we academics we set out to be neutral, but I can understand why the question, that we can seem to be neutral in when we present our information. There's a lot that is wrong in our societies within post-colonial Africa. I mentioned it, corruption, for example. We have media capture. We have joblessness. We have people who are, dying unnecessarily, in conflicts that can be prevented. Yeah. We also have a scenario, like we mentioned with James at the beginning, where we have former colonial powers involved, and they also have a portion of blame. We have big companies coming to Africa, mining and getting things out of Africa. And this is I mean, look at the Congo, for example. For goodness sake, they produce the material we use for these mobiles, for which we use to communicate. But what do they get when you go to the Congo? You can see that poverty is worsening, and this is shared across Africa. We have a situation where the conditions of poverty are worsening instead of getting better after independence. Why is it the case? Yeah. This, as academics, we should write about this. We should speak about this. We do talk about this in our lectures. I teach development. I talk about these things. Yeah, this is about African lived experience. Yeah, if I don't talk about the challenges that we have in Africa, then what else should I talk about? And these challenges are human challenges. Yeah. The society is better when everyone is catered for. So my concern is not just about the problems within Africa, but it's about us as human beings to go to another level, yeah? So that some of the things that are affecting our lives can be dealt with. So you are quite right that maybe academics should think of empowering young people, so that the joblessness is removed. If young people are given, business skills, if young people are empowered and given, belief that they can set up, enterprises instead of seeking work, that they can actually be the solution that they want. They can actually set up things together. They can be given resources to start something, whether it's farming, whether it's mining, whether it's transport businesses. We have seen some, examples like people here in the diaspora getting together. Koki women, for example, in the diaspora from Zimbabwe, they've come together and they have pooled resources. They buy lorries together. They buy, implements that go into businesses. And these examples need to be reported on by the media so that others know that this can be done. Yeah? We don't have a situation where some of what is going right is being publicized, and the role models that are around us are actually being held as as good. So I mean, James was asking me what role can the media perform. I think in a context where Africa is facing these challenges in everyday life, we need the media to be proactive, not just to report on what is happening, but to actually seek out solutions to be part of the changes that we want to see in society.
Yeah. Oh, Winston, thank you. That's a really and yeah, you managed to answer a couple of questions in one there. Just want to welcome everyone who is joining today for this In Conversation. We've got a bit more time left, so if there are any more questions, do drop them into the chat, and I will try to direct them to Winston as we continue the discussion. I wanted to just move things along slightly for a moment and talk about African media studies more generally, which is, of course, an area you're an expert in, and we're going to get into the Journal of African Media Studies, of which you're the principal editor, which is a hugely important journal and one that's been very important in moving some of these conversations forward, I think, over the past years. But I wanted to ask you sort of, what's the state of African media studies globally, and maybe what are some of the key themes and things that that come up again? We've already mentioned the idea of decolonizing the media, and I've seen that as a word and term in your work. And then I wonder if you could meditate on this idea of Afroecology. Again, is a term that I know that you're very familiar with. It's often cited in your work. So yeah, maybe you could just give us a little bit of an overview on some of those points.
Thank you very much. I think in media studies, in the field of media studies, we have area studies that have been developing over some time, but these have occupied sort of the margins within the field. Yeah, the main areas of study or focus in media and communication studies have been Anglo-Saxon kind of media studies. Yeah, that is media in Europe and in America, North America especially. And the other area studies like Latin American media studies, we don't know. Asian media studies, we don't know. African media studies, we were sort of, without mention, being pushed to the margins. Yeah. So if you write about, say, media in Zimbabwe, you'll be asked, maybe you should look at it in relation to what is happening, say, at the BBC, or you should look at it in relation to what is happening in North America. So in a way, we were pushed into a margin. So what we were saying with other colleagues is that this is not supposed to be the case. Yeah, media studies need to be, it's linked to the whole, global north, global south kind of, dynamic, where we should not have geopolitics that silence and marginalize other parts of the world. Yeah, we should be able to espouse our own epistemes, our own knowledge, so that it exists in a pluriverse with other knowledges. So what we have done with other colleagues is to think about media studies from the area of Africa, where I'm born, for example, in terms of our lived experience, in terms of what the history has, presented us with, and found out that there is a lot of silencing that was part of that was systematic in relation to colonialism, for example, whereby knowledge in general from Africa was silenced, was put to the margins. We were not supposed to have any history. History starts when the colonizer comes into Africa. The objects which are now going to be returned to Africa, for example, the artifacts, which there's a debate about, returning, so the Benin bronze. In Zimbabwe, we have the heads of chiefs that were taken to museums here in Britain, which is a major problem. Yeah? So what we are saying is that the past has dealt Africa a very big blow. What should happen is a revisit of the kind of lived experience of Africans, and also a restating of the knowledge boundaries, yeah, and a centering of African knowledges within the pluriverse of knowledge. But at the same time, there have been attempts to universalize knowledge from the global north, especially from Europe and North America, as the universal knowledge. Yeah? So what we should have is a situation where knowledge from the margins, the so-called margins, should be respected as a basis for thinking through about that can inspire solutions into everyday life. So if you are thinking about this in media terms, we have had a lot of theories from Africa that have been rejected as, or some knowledge from Africa that has been rejected as not knowledge, as not useful. And the students and media students in Africa have actually been able to, have not been able to use any of their, to understand their locality, to understand that which is next to them. Yeah, and this is sad, in a continent which is so innovative, which is so diverse, which has so much to give to the world. Yeah, we have a situation where this silencing has gone on here. So what we are saying is that the story of Africa needs to be told, yeah, just like the story from other contexts, yeah, and it needs to be there in the pool of different stories, yeah. So in short, decolonization is about, you know, unsilencing. It's about undoing the oppression that has gone on within academic studies, yeah, and restoring and excavating, going into our, you know, own African lived experience, and finding that which can actually enrich global knowledge. But part of you asked about Afroecology. Afroecology is a theory that we excavated in terms of the work that I'm currently doing, where we again went into this Afroecology came from an African historian. He's late. His name is Dan Nabdere. He's from Uganda. So his Afroecology was written in a way to respect African knowledge. It's an article, for example, that he wrote in 2006. And we felt very inspired with my colleague Viola Milton from the University of South Africa that, oh, this is exactly what we want. Yeah. But however, it had some shortcomings. We thought that what he's doing was also to think of Africa in a way that is universal. He was so romantic in some cases in his thinking about the African condition. So we infused it with a new kind of concept. Yeah. So at the heart of Afroecology is not just excavating the African past and celebrating it. We actually say that it's important to push back on, you know, this hegemonic aspects of existing global knowledge from the global north, for example. And we highlight incompleteness as a very important aspect. We mobilize the thinking of Cameroonian anthropologist Francis Nyamjo, who provides this idea of incompleteness. And we use it to unmask the incompleteness of knowledge from the global north. We feel that when you are looking at knowledge in general, it's important to think of knowledge as incomplete, as something that is always becoming. Yeah? Otherwise, what's the point of learning? So instead of people from the global north coming to the global south saying, you know, these are the complete texts, these are the syllabus that you need to use, we are saying they should be humble and, you know, accept incompleteness as being at the heart of all knowledge. Yeah? And if they do so, then it becomes much more convivial. You begin to see the gaps, you begin to see what else can be added. So instead of them fostering knowledge from the north as complete, we are saying it needs to be looked at incomplete. At the same time, in the African side, we are also saying we should not endorse, you know, knowledge that is very narrow and prescriptive, or that does not do justice to our own diversity and our story as Africans that are coming from different backgrounds. Yeah? We should have a story of Africa that is very much lively, that is convivial, that is able to accommodate that which is relevant from our past and center it within the global pool of knowledges. It's something that can be, you know, that can enrich knowledge for humankind. So if you are looking at decolonization, who needs to be decolonized? It's humankind, you know. It's a problem for both colonizer and the colonized, yeah. And if you don't take coloniality out of it, if you don't remove coloniality, we continue to have problems, yeah, whereby we don't achieve development. You started by asking me, are things changing in Zimbabwe? If coloniality remains a problem, if there are no new relations, if there is no relational accountability between the colonizer and colonized, between leaders and the led, I mean, if our leaders are copying, you know, the way we were oppressed by the colonizers, for example, and coloniality remains a problem within our context there, then we will not have development. Some places will still be the same in the next 100 years. Yeah, so we need to go beyond coloniality, yeah, and establish new kind of relations, yeah, between ourselves, within ourselves, but also between Africa and the rest of the world. Yeah.
With that in mind, with regard to this idea of unsilencing and decolonization, I had a couple of just questions relating to that sort of broadly. So, first of all, perhaps you could highlight some of the work of some African scholars who maybe have had an impact on your own research or your own scholarship, or just if there's any that maybe people out there might want to familiarize themselves with, so just so that we can do our part in trying to broaden people's horizons, and make sure that some of these more marginalized from African scholars are now brought into the center again.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think there's been quite a lot. Most Africans, I think, are writing in a very serious way, even when they write fiction. Yeah, you get books like Waiting for the Rain, or you get books like Devil on the Cross. You get books like God's Beast of Wood, or you get you get even Chimamanda Adichie's novels, Half a Yellow Sun. You cannot escape from representing our realities, which are very much, touched by, where we are coming from. Tsitsi Dangarembga's Never's Condition, for example, or The Malleable Body that she has produced, which has won an award. These are all books that continue the tradition of, Frantz Fanon, with people like Ngubengcuka Thiong, people like even the way we produce films. Yeah, you look at Sembene Usmane's films. Even when he's writing about, when he's trying to represent even in Sala, trying to represent what is like, an ordinary community of Africans celebrate. We are always ending up, representing some of the issues, big issues like corruption, like, the issues about coloniality, the issues about the division. But I mean, I always go back to the originals, I'm very much inspired by Things Fall Apart by Achebe, for example, who wrote about the colonial era and the coming in of Christianity. I'm always inspired by these writers that try to deal with the complexities of African life. It is still something that we are grappling with as contemporary Africans. When you enjoy a story like Tsotsi from South Africa on film, yeah, these are infused with our lived realities. Yeah, these are not just stories; these are complex narratives that reflect our history, that contain a lot about what has happened. They capture the moments. Even the last King of Solomon of Scotland, which was produced in Africa, I was watching it, or the Beast of the Nation. These stories, they may have a whole tinge to them, but they actually represent something about us. When we watch them as Africans, we recognize elements that speak to our own life, and we try to reinterpret them and to use them to make sense of where we are going, yeah? Or to Rwanda, or things like that. These are all stories that capture our own fragilities. They put on center stage our hopes and the kind of issues that circumscribe our lives as Africans.
Winston, thank you very much for that. We've got around 10 minutes left. So if anyone does have any burning questions, now would be the time to put in the comments section and I'll try to get through to them. But I would like to just around a little bit, and I've got a few more questions, but one I would really like to ask is let's just take this opportunity to discuss and celebrate the Journal of African Media Studies, Intellect, which has an impact factor, which is a fantastic journal. and which is one that we're very proud of. And you know, first of all, thank you and congratulations for being at the helm of such a wonderful publication for so long. But can you just tell us a little how, you know, the foundation of the journal, how it came out, how it came about, what the aims and the scope, and then we can talk a little bit how perhaps people could get involved in the publication if they have research that might be relevant.
Thank you very much. I think when I came to the Global North, it was very difficult to find material for my own PhD. I was doing a doctorate at the University of Westminster. It's always a challenge for students from the Global South to find materials. So it was in this context that I got together with colleagues like Wendy Williams from the LSE, Martin Geller from Norway, he's Zimbabwean as well. And people like Monica Chibita from Uganda. And we talked to Professor Sparks and other colleagues here at Westminster, and we were able to develop. It took long. It was like a project that took 2 years to produce, you know, the basic idea of the journal. And we also had the wrong publisher to start with, and it was very difficult to get started. Yeah. They wanted to publish it in a very difficult way. We were supposed to pay money. Until we found Intellect. Intellect was really, you know, the difference. Yeah. So it's thanks to your company, and they gave us, you know, the impetus to, and also the kind of, you know, framework to work liberally and put together a team, an international team on the advisory board, but also a team that we worked with within the editorial structure. So we had people from here in the UK, but also people from around the world, including people from Africa. And the journal's purpose was very clear: to, again, you know, challenge the knowledge hegemony within the media and communication area, and center African perspectives within media and communication. And I'm glad that since we started it publishing in 2009, the journal has been really, really important, providing, you know, a lot of African scholars with opportunity to publish and to provide, you know, alternative perspectives that complicate the global story. So no longer will articles just come from, you know, the established journals. The journal is actually part of the centering of African perspectives. And I'm really proud of the team. I'm proud of Professor Martin Geller and other colleagues who work with me on this project. Yeah.
Excellent. And do you have any, do you have any themed issues coming up? And if people are interested in submitting their own research, maybe you could just, you know, just give a little overview of that project. That might look exciting. If there's any themes you're really looking at right now for the journal.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. We are currently seized with the articles that are reflecting on the COVID pandemic. We are looking at how COVID-19 impacted African societies. So we have had a series of issues curated by Professor Martin Geller, which are really successful. And we have had, we recruited a new team of young editors to work with us, or people who are, you know, new to editing. They are not young. They are young, of course, but they are also people who are, you know, helping us to get the journal published much more regularly. So we are excited that at the moment the focus on COVID is successful. We are also interested in issues to do with digitality, like the digital in Africa. What does it mean? Yeah, the ICT is really changing, you know, the continent as promised. Yeah. Why does Facebook provide, you know, free basics in Africa? What is happening there? Why should we have all these big, or the chief executives of big techs coming to Africa? Is it providing change? The change that we want? Some people are talking about digital colonialism. What does it mean? You know, So there are so many topics here. And we also are excited with the innovation that is going on in Africa. You know, this is a continent that provided mobile money solutions. This is a continent that pioneered geo-tagging. This is a continent with a lot of applications that are now making an impact across the world. Yeah? And some of it comes from our own, conditions, our lived experience, like people without bank accounts. We approached with this idea of mobile money. And in Britain, they were calling it Ping It. But Ping It is like M-Pesa in Kenya. Yeah? And geotagging is now a useful thing. When America has hurricanes, they use some technology that is, again, inspired by conditions in Africa. And so this is exactly what we want in terms of Afroecology. Yeah? To have Africa, African solutions centered in their own right, so that they are recognized as such, not as appendages. Yeah? And Africans have much to give to the world. Yeah? And this should not be. I mean, the problem with some of what is happening is that, for example, when big techs are setting up hubs, yeah, they are doing so to establish sales offices and not to create knowledge, or not to allow locals to local talent to actually develop and be part of, technological development. What they are doing is to sometimes interfere with the technical solutions that are already there. They create these talent pools. Sometimes they employ people and then they release them the next year, and create disruptions that are unnecessary. So it is very important that, yes, Africa needs, in the fourth industrial revolution, we can play a part, but our own regulators, the African continent, will need to play a key role in regulation, but also in providing leadership and to look at these spaces and create spaces that can leverage African lives.
Thank you, Winston. That's a fantastic point. I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to the Journal of African Studies. You can go on intellectbooks.com. You can download a free copy. You can see all the abstract. You can submit your research directly to the journal publication via the website, or you can reach Winston or his editor staff again via the www.intellectbooks.com website. I'd also just like to say, if you're interested in finding out more about Winston and his research and some of the work he's doing with his university, and I know you're doing African media studies, you've got a wealth and depth of publications out there. So I just urge everyone just to type in Winston Mano, and then that'll take you to his own website through the University of Westminster, and you can see the full list of publications. But just as a final question, first of all, just thank you so much again for your time today. It's been fascinating, and it's really nice to be, to be a bit more light on African media studies through this platform rather than simply through the academic journal platform that we've always been trying to celebrate. But I just finally, just in the last couple of minutes, would you have any top tips for someone who maybe was maybe for a young African scholar who's looking to get their first position as an academic at a teaching institute, or to maybe get their first article published in a journal? What are your kind of top tips for that kind of person?
I think they should have resilience. They should have a clear focus on issues that are relevant for the African research area. There are many issues. If you are not sure, talk to your professor. Go to conferences, read the journal. You find what is topical, and you find gaps that are there within some of the articles. But it is important. Don't be, just be bold. Yeah. If you think this is the area, fine. Somebody is asking me, am I writing a movie? Is it something that I do? Yes. I'd like to go into movies at some point. Yeah. And I would like to write movies and represent realities in Africa in different ways. I'm inspired by, my colleague, for example, Tsitsi Dangarembwa. I like the way she has gone into movies and the way she's a writer. It's good to be creative in different ways. Maybe one day to play music and and to convey messages in different ways. But yes, it's good to be creative in whatever way is possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, well, look, Winston, that's about all time we've got. That's about all we have time for today. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining me. It's been fascinating. Thank you to everyone in the audience, for everyone who did join today. It's been great having you involved. Thank you for the questions. And if you, as I say, if you want to find out more about Dr. Winston Mano, his research, or that he's been involved in, or ask him some questions directly, you can either go to www.intellectbooks.com or you can go to the University of Westminster and just search for him under their profile. Again, just thanks so much, Winston. I'm looking forward to having you do this at some point in the future, because I barely got through any of it. So that's always the sign of a great conversation, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to Intellect. Thank you to everyone who has joined. I'm proud of you. Thank you. Keep support.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Jan.